So What? A Marvel fanfiction written on AO3 by LCPL_Westbury, Yeater Stark. The link for this fanfiction will be in the description box below, so I encourage you all to go check it out. Tony was having a pretty great day so far. He'd been working in his lab all day and had made some major upgrades on his and Peter's supersuits. He was currently bobbing his head to some AC/DC as he missed a super important meeting. Pepper was bound to lynch him later. Yeah, he was having an amazing time. Unfortunately, his mood crumbled with one phone call. "Incoming call, boss," Friday said, interrupting his music. Tony groaned dramatically and muttered for her to accept it. "Who dis?" he asked, making sure he sounded extremely exasperated. Looking back, he supposed he tried a little too hard to express his annoyance. "This is Principal Morita from Midtown Tech. I'm calling about Peter Parker. Is this Tony Stark?" This made Tony sit up in his chair. "Yeah, what happened? Is Peter okay?" "He got into a fight with another boy. They're both alright, but we do need you to come in." "I'll be there. Friday, and call." Tony grabbed his coat and rushed out of the lab. He made his way down to the garage and, ignoring a call from Pepper, hopped into the first car he found. In a blind fury, Tony skirted into Peter's school parking lot and staggered like a drunk into the front office. "Where's my son?" he screamed calmly. The secretary looked up from her computer and her face went white. It's Tony Stark?" she stuttered, as a very red blush flushed over her cheeks. "Yeah," Tony confirmed, somehow gathering his wits. "I'm here for Peter Parker." "He's in Principal Morita's office, behind me, first door on the left." Tony nodded and thanked her as he passed. He stepped into the principal's office and saw Peter and another boy sitting across the room from each other, staring each other down with pure hatred in their eyes. Tony couldn't help but flinch. He'd never seen the kids so angry. There was a woman sitting next to the other boy, holding an ice pack over his jaw, her eyes shooting daggers at Peter. Mr. Stark," the principal said. "If you would mind taking a seat, please." Tony obliged and glared at both boys as he took a seat next to his son. Tony knew that Peter was being bullied. Well, he didn't know. It was more of a hunch, really. And the way he acted when Tony asked him how school was, suspicious, to say the least. The way he avoided the question, darting out of the room, or changed the subject, hell, he even saw the occasional faded bruise. But he never pushed it. Never wanted to. He should have, but he wanted to wait until Peter was comfortable enough to tell him himself. Unfortunately, he waited a bit too long. "Hey, Spider-Man," Tony hissed through the corner of his mouth. Peter curled in on himself slightly, although it was barely noticeable. "I'm sorry, Dad," he mumbled. "Damn right you are," Tony whispered. "That piece of shit," the woman screeched, pointing her finger at Peter. "Attacked my son. Expel him." Tony heard Peter growl quietly. "Please, Miss Thompson," the principal said. "We need to hear both boys' stories before we can take action. Flash?" "I didn't do anything," Flash said with a tiny smirk. "We were in engineering, and Peter wasn't paying attention, and he got the answer wrong, and I got it right, and then he was totally mad at me because I made him look stupid. I was just walking around, and then he cornered me and started beating me up." "Yeah, because Peter would totally do that." Tony wanted to punch the kid in the face. "Alright, and what about you, Peter?" Peter started, his tears making his eyes shimmer. I can't, I don't know." "See?" Flash's mom screamed. "Flash didn't do anything." Peter was about to break down. Tony had to get him out of the room. Sir, could I please have a moment to talk with my son?" Tony said. "Go ahead. Take all the time you need." "Hurry up," snapped Miss Thompson. "I haven't got all day." The father-son duo rushed out of the office and ducked into a nearby hallway. "Peter, were you thinking at all?" Tony whisper-shouted at his son before he could say anything. "You're enhanced. You could have seriously hurt that boy." To his surprise, Peter didn't argue. He just lowered his head in shame and sadly muttered, "I'm sorry." "What really happened?" Tony asked softly. "I know you wouldn't punch a kid over something so stupid." Peter blushed and muttered that he didn't know what Tony was talking about. Yeah, this kid's a real bad liar. Peter. Well, yeah, so..." Peter sounded close to tears, and Tony could see he was clearly upset about whatever the hell happened. He felt his heart slowly break as Peter struggled to choke the story out. I was going to third with Ned, and Flash started following us, and he was taunting me, but I did nothing, really. Dad, I can handle it. I'm used to it anyway. Used to it? Tony thought. I was just ignoring him, and I guess he didn't really like that much. So he pushed Ned and told him to go away, and if he didn't, he called Ned some really mean names, and I told him to fuck off, and he got mad. He said that I was stupid and worthless. Tony frowned. Pete, and that May died because of me? Peter broke off that sentence abruptly with a strangled sob. Shit, Peter, Tony said softly. That wasn't your fault. Please tell me you know that. Peter ignored his dad and continued to tell the rest of the story. He said that she hated me so much that she tried to run away, and that she was so desperate to get away from me that she wasn't paying attention. Needless to say, Tony was furious, steaming even. How could someone say that to his boy, this kid, the one person who he loved so damn much? However, he remained calm for his son's sake and rubbed his back comfortingly. Pete, you know that's not true, right? I don't know. Fresh sobs. Pete, Tony started. Pete, listen to me. Hiccups. Your aunt loves you very much. There's no doubt about it, Pete. She adored you. He's just a stupid kid who doesn't have a life. He's jealous of you, and he's angry and takes it out on you. It's not your fault. Tony smirked. His parents probably don't love him either, he added, in a vain attempt to make Peter laugh. Do you love me? Peter croaked. Of course I do. You're the best thing to ever happen to me, Tony said softly, holding his arms out. Peter collapsed into them and let out fresh sobs. Muffled cries rang out through the empty halls. Tony rubbed his beloved son's back. Let it all out. That's it. Until Peter was done. They went back into the office, and Tony made Peter tell Principal Morgan what really happened. Being the amazing parent he was, he supported Peter throughout the entire ordeal and shot daggers at Flash's mother every time he huffed or scoffed at something he said. When he was done, the bitchy woman huffed for the millionth time and sharply jumped to her feet, dragging her pathetic excuse of a son with her. Well, that was a waste of my time, she spat. I want him expelled. Let's go, Eugene. Miss Thompson, the principal called after her. I'm sorry, but we can't ignore this clear act of bullying. Looking between Flash and Peter. You'll both be suspended for a week. And you, he said, addressing Flash. We need your visit to a guidance counselor once a week until you cleared up your act. Miss Thompson started screaming, and at this point, Tony was so sick of hearing her shrill voice. He decided it was best to grab Peter and run before he committed an act of violence against this woman. Are you mad at me? Peter asked once in the car. I was, Tony said. No, I'm not. What he did was wrong. I wanted to punch him too. Peter chuckled and smiled at his dad. But you can't do that. You could have lost control. Could have killed him. Yeah. I love you, Pete. You know that? If anything happened to you, I'd kill everyone in this room. Peter laughed. I love you too, Dad.